genre.
Back to The Doctor's Companion presents Doctor Who The Long Way Round, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Cass Fredrickson.
I'm Nick Jimenez.
And I'm Scott Corelli.
And today on the show, we'll be discussing Terminus, the Fifth Doctor's 11th story.
So Terminus, which aired from February 15th, 1983, to February 23rd, 1983. This is the second part of the Black Guardian trilogy, and sort of the Black Guardian trilogy being the sort of
arc,
I guess. Yeah, the arc, or the main arc of this season. Season 20, which was celebrating the 20th anniversary of Doctor Who, and would ultimately culminate with the Five Doctors that November of 83. But this season was all about returning villains, and they kind of cheat because JMT, John Nathan Turner, only wanted like his people, like his villains to return, or like I guess not like Daleks and Cybermen and stuff. He wanted like other villains to return, and so like the Black Guardian was like one of those sort of like low key villains, and he saved all the top shelf ones, I guess, for Five Doctors. Though there's a lot to be said about that when we get there. Yeah, so the second part of the Black Guardian trilogy being the return of the Black Guardian from an arc of the Fourth Doctor era that, Nick, you have not gotten to yet, and we probably won't get to for quite a while. But in any event, this, of course, introduced Turlough, which we talked about in our last discussion of a Fifth Doctor story. And this is the arc in which Turlough is secretly working for the Black Guardian to kill the Doctor so that he can go back home, because he's not human, he's an alien, and wants to go to his home planet.
He's not special.
Yeah. What's that?
Oh, he's an alien. He wants to get home to his... Get in line, dude.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So before I get into the background on this particular story, I would love to know what everyone thought of Terminus. Personally, I think it's a step down from Modern Undead, the last one, which was really fun. But I think overall, I find it fairly entertaining, even if it's a little nonsensical at times. I'm just I don't know. The costume design in particular in this one, I'm wow. There's it's just so different than what you're used to. That and much more detailed than it usually is. There's a reason for that we'll get to. But there's just something about this one that I kind of vibe with, even though I don't think it's great. If that makes sense. I hold both truths in my hands for some reason. Nick, what did you think of Terminus?
I thought the costumes were a highlight as well. Particularly, I wrote down in my notes when they first appeared, it looked like two Tom Bakers in Flash Gordon outfits because of the hair.
Yeah.
And the cult, the Night Watch that we'll get into. I like their costumes as well.
Very Doony.
Very Doony.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was mostly indifferent about this episode, pretty lukewarm about it. I thought it was often kind of slow and plotting, but then had really interesting concepts and very kind of entertaining characters. So much so that now that I'm thinking about it, it reminds me a lot of like a throwaway, totally down the middle episode of like an 11 or a 13. I feel like those two Doctors had a lot of like episodes where I'm like, this was kind of boring, but I guess I just like this crew. So
Yeah.
it was fun checking in on my friends this week. But yeah. Not great.
Yeah. Cass, what are your thoughts?
So I couldn't really remember anything about this one other than there was the big like wolf thing and then
Yeah.
Nyssa leaves. So kind of and then I remembered the reveal before, like, I don't know, 30 seconds before it happened. I was like, oh yeah, I know what this is. I think the costuming is like what elevates this, honestly. It sucks that for Nyssa's last episode she's like separated from everyone and pretending to be sick, or not pretending to be sick, but she's Sarah Sutton is acting sick. And I wish that, because I really like Nyssa, I wish that her last episode was a little better, or like more like central.
It really highlighted what made her a cool character.
Yeah. But I did like that we basically have like Turlough and Tegan who don't like each other and don't get along, and they're in their like get along air conditioning vent for like the whole story. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I liked that, but it was fine. I don't know that I would ever like the I just wanted to keep watching afterward, because next week or next time we talk about the Fifth Doctor, that's like my favorite Fifth Doctor story. So I think that Terminus is definitely like the weakest of this trilogy, but it's like not terrible, you know?
Yeah. I feel like it's like it's standard Doctor Who that is elevated slightly by the costumes.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
So okay. So getting into the background on this, Steve Gallagher, who wrote this story, also wrote Warrior's Gate, one of the latter day Fourth Doctor stories.
Is that the one with the lion people?
I think so.
Okay.
Don't remember. I haven't seen
He likes
any
animal
of that.
people.
He does.
I haven't seen a lot of that last season of Fourth Doctor stuff like in 10 plus years probably.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's the one. I think that's also a companion departure. That's interesting.
Oh yeah. That's Romana's departure,
Yeah.
right?
And K9, yeah.
Yeah, right. And Adric's first story?
No, his third one, because they pick him up
Oh.
at the beginning of that trilogy, and then he just leaves with them.
Oh, right. Okay, that's the end of the E-Space
Yes,
trilogy.
I think so.
Not the start. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, so Steve Gallagher wrote Warrior's Gate in 1980, and everyone was really happy with that story. And so he was asked to write another story, and he came up with the concept of Terminus and vaguely pitched it. And they were like, "Yeah, cool. Keep working on it." And he was like, "All right." And so then he kept toiling away at it. That was in 1980, and it wasn't for another year before John Nathan Turner reached back out and finally checked in and was like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't forget about you, but we lost Tom Baker. We had to introduce a bunch of new companions. There were some shakeups with story editors. A lot of stuff's going on, so I didn't forget about you, but I'm circling back now. Let's go ahead and commission that story." So he commissions it finally in like summer of 1981. Meanwhile, John Nathan Turner also really wanted to write Nyssa off the show. He wasn't responsible for I guess bringing her on, or maybe he was. I don't remember exactly what happened with that. But in any event, he found that he didn't like Nyssa because what he desired from companions, and if you look at his entire era, you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense for the most part. He only liked companions who were in direct opposition to the Doctor most of the time. He liked the Doctor and the companions to be like bickering and to be opposites and to be like, annoy each other. I don't know why he liked that so much, but like all the other companions, like Adric was that way, Tegan was that way, Turlough is that way.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the Sixth Doctor, Perry was that way. He for some reason he liked a sort of like mismatched Doctor and companion pairing, and hated Nyssa because he found her boring, and because she's always in agreement with the Doctor. And he was like, that sucks. And I want her gone. However, it was Peter Davison who stayed her execution multiple times over the course of her tenure on the show because he loved Nyssa and was like, no, she's the best companion. If Nyssa leaves, I'm leaving. And so that happened multiple times, which stopped them from writing Nyssa off the show. But eventually they basically like stopped giving Nyssa anything to do. And so when John Nathan Turner was like, okay, we're really writing her off for real this time, no one fought it this time. But they were like, this story better be good. Spoilers, they were not happy with this story. Neither Sarah Sutton or Peter Davison. But more on that later. But yeah, I mean, basically JNT like did not want Nyssa to be part of the 20th anniversary special. So he was like, she has to leave before that. And this story makes the most sense because it's like kind of sciencey and there's like a good enough reason for her to like not get back on the TARDIS. So they just kind of rolled with that. Also, Gallagher wrote the first draft of this and wanting to add more of a note of tragedy to Nyssa leaving the TARDIS. He laced throughout this story the insane revelation that Nyssa and the Doctor had been in a sexual relationship since Tegan left the TARDIS the first time.
What?
Yes. And weirdly, Peter Davison and Sarah Sutton were like kind of into it, but Eric Sayward was like, no. But that is why she kisses the Doctor on the cheek when she leaves, is to just leave like one little hint of that behind. But it's gross and I hate it and I don't want it there.
That's weird.
Yeah. Very weird. Nick, what are your thoughts on Fivey and Nyssa just getting it on during their short tenure on the TARDIS by themselves?
Yeah. He tries pushing all the stuff off the console, but he realizes it's not that kind of console and it's all like
right. Yeah.
embedded. I mean, it's kind of cool just because I don't know. I'm picturing like they're in a lab somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like taking notes, and then it's like, oh yes, these will be quite good notes or something.
Oh boy,
it's interesting that the actors were into it.
Yeah, they were a little like a little. They were like, oh, that's interesting. Like we haven't really been playing it that way, but like,
because why would we? Yeah,
right. But I think they were just interested in the idea of like something more adult being like put into it, because I think everybody sort of saw the JNT era as like both like kind of childish but also like mature in the wrong ways, like you know, like in a Zack Snyder-y kind of way where you're like everybody's like teeth gritted mature versus you know,
death is
for
new,
adults
mature.
Yeah. So
Cass, what do you think about Dr. / Nyssa?
They like, I like their like platonic chemistry, but they have like zero romantic chemistry, and it's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, Mary Ridge was chosen to direct this episode, this story. Mary Ridge, who had never worked on Doctor Who before, but had been back in J&T's floor manager days. They had sort of like hit it off, and he'd always remembered her and wanted to bring her into the fold. And it finally worked out with Terminus. So she came in to direct. Mary Ridge, who had been a director for a long time and had been known and just sort of like had this run, this perfect unbroken run of delivering television on time and under budget, and absolutely unbroken. Like it was her whole thing. It's like that was her claim to fame as a director. And so she was brought on to Doctor Who. Now, before we get into the rest of this, I feel like I don't know how many of our listeners know how Doctor Who was shot back in the day. So I just want to like break that down just for a second, which is just that because this is like serialized and technically multicam, every episode of Doctor Who was shot in a single day, which is why everything is so cheap and sort of like ramsackled and all of that, especially these studio episodes like this, where there's absolutely no location shooting whatsoever. Everything was shot sort of like in one day. So if a story was 4 episodes long, the shoot would be 4 days. You would shoot 2 days, get like a week off, and then come back and do 2 more days. And that would be the entire storyline. So they had 4 days to shoot a 4-part story, 4 production days. So that's how Doctor Who was shot. And Mary Ridge was absolutely prepared for that. She's used to it. However, she learned that her studio time was going to be nearly cut in half due to union disputes. And with electricians and a few other things. And so, that was the beginning of some nervous stuff. One of those other unions that was, in a dispute was the costuming union. So the costumes in this story were outsourced. And that's why they look so different from a lot of other Doctor Who at this time. They were being outsourced to a fabrication and costuming department in another country who were very, very excited to be working for Doctor Who and wanted to show their bona fide, their bona fides, and really be like, yeah, we're gonna take over. This is gonna be our show now. However, due to miscommunication or lack of communication between J&T and these outsourced costuming people, they made a lot of mistakes because they did not know what production of Doctor Who looked like, what it was supposed to be, and J&T did not inform them of these things. He sort of took that for granted because he was used to working with BBC's costuming department, who just knew that stuff and had known that stuff since the 60s. These costumers had no idea how the production of Doctor Who worked. So the first mistake they made was that they made the armor, the veneer armor. It was fabricated, and if you notice when you're watching the show, they fabricated it to be purely decorative. And were very troubled to learn that there was going to be a fight scene because the armor was too noisy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you're watching it, you hear them walking around and it's just making a lot of racket. And so when they learned that there would be fight scenes involved, it required a refabrication of the armor that would be used for those fight scenes, which ended up being pretty costly. I found this to be interesting that J&T spent all that money on redoing the costumes to be less noisy versus just letting it be noisy in those scenes and then doing ADR to re-record the dialogue in those scenes. I just figure a couple hours of studio time would have been cheaper. I don't know, but I don't know how great of a producer J&T was. So so he splurged for refabrication. Also refabricated were Kari and Alvir's outfits, which were originally light blue, which the outsourced costuming department were not aware would clash with the clash and interfere with the chroma keying that was used in the show. And so they were sent back and had to be redone in white, so that they wouldn't clash with the blue screens.
And they look great.
They do look incredible. However, also another problem with that sequence was the helmets that they wear, the glorious helmets. They were designed to be held. They had no idea that you had to wear that they were going to have to wear them, and so they were constantly fogging up in the scene, and basically had to have like holes drilled in them at the top to like let the hot air out so that it wouldn't fog up.
And it's you mentioned that this was off country. These folks were somewhere else in Europe, and this was 1983. This was before Teams and email, and communication was just so much more slow than what television is used to now.
Absolutely. The only thing that they could have done is like call. That's like the only option. But apparently J&T wasn't doing that.
I don't know. Just didn't think to do that.
I don't know. So they start shooting episode 1 and realized that it was running short. So J&T requested 2 1-minute scenes, like 2 1-minute additional scenes for Steve Gallagher to write to extend the length of the episode. But Gallagher misunderstood the request and instead added material to multiple scenes in episode 1 that would add up to 2 minutes of material. However, those scenes had already been shot, so all of his amendments were discarded.
That sucks.
Just time wasted.
And also, like, it's J&T like asking him to basically write fluff, like just write like 2 bullshit 1-page scenes. And it's just like, well, the episode's done. Like, I already wrote the episode,
Right.
So like, you're just asking me to like write like pull 2 random scenes out of my ass for no reason, which sucks. Again, not a great producer is what I'm learning. But oh boy, I'm not even through the nightmare that was this shoot. So like after that miscommunication, as the thing was starting to shoot, Gallagher began working on a new pitch for an episode called Nightmare Country. But due to the everyone being pretty displeased with this episode, he was not invited back. But Nightmare Country is a pretty cool title. I'll give him that. So on the first day of shooting, a power failure resulted in a 2-hour delay. Because there's no electricians to fix it. So then, when the crew was finally ready to go, Mary Ridge discovered that one of the sets had been erected off of its marks, which meant that they had a further stoppage when they had to tear the set down and then re-erect it back on like the marks where it was supposed to be. Again, because they're using crew that are not part of the union dispute. So like these people they just don't know what they're doing. Then John Nathan Turner was forced to call a halt to the recording of some scenes involving the interior of the TARDIS console because the correct circuitry was missing. Again, electrician stuff. This meant that Ridge had to then record sequences on other sets, which had not even been properly lit yet.
Yeah.
Later, Neither of the drone robot props that were in this story neither of them had been tested before they were brought to the studio, and it learned that only one of them worked properly. Originally, Nyssa was supposed to be dragged away by two, one each grabbing one of her hands, but instead it's just one robot pulling one of her arm,
just dragging her by one wrist.
Yeah, like a little kid, trying to
playing cops and robbers,
take her to the ride that she doesn't want to go on.
Or you're going to jail now, and you have to be like, okay, and being away, but and the poor actor is kind of walking at a snail's pace.
Yeah. Let's see. Another problem happened when one of the extras playing a Lazar, whatever, one of the lepers, accidentally grabbed Janet Fielding's top during a scene and ripped it off and exposed her to the entire cast and crew. So that's not great. And then also, for the first time in her career, Mary Ridge was appalled to realize that she would have to delay some scenes until the already packed second studio block. The two studio blocks being, the 2-day shoot and then the week off, and then the second studio block being the next 2-day shoot. She was like, oh no, this is going to be bad. But yeah, all of this basically resulted in an increasingly tense atmosphere on set. Davidson was incensed that the actor's performance were being given short shift in the rush to record. Nyssa's farewell, which Ridge had tried and failed to tape by restaging it in the TARDIS console room just to get something done, didn't work because the cast were like, no, this doesn't make any sense. Why would she get back on the TARDIS if she's just going to leave? And so they refused to shoot it. And also Nyssa was like, or Sarah Sutton was like, I don't want to shoot my last scene and then come back. I don't want to shoot it now. Let's shoot it later. And so they just wouldn't do it. And so that didn't work out. Sutton was really disappointed with her final story, just in general. She was like, this sucks. The vibes are off. And for some reason, I am removing my skirt, and I don't know why. She could not figure this out at all. And no one had an answer for her. It was just asked of her by, I guess, J&T wanted it to happen or something. I don't know. I can't find a straight answer, and neither could Sarah Sutton, as to why she spends the majority of this story in her slip. It drives her crazy to this day.
Yeah, because the doctor finds it later.
Yeah.
And it's this is Nyssa's skirt.
Yeah. I guess that's the reason.
And and she was in the midst of her whatever illness. So that's what I clocked it at. I definitely remember it happening because I was like, that's weird. But it happened. I took it as that thing. I don't know, that thing that Chris Pratt does in Parks and Rec when he's running and he just peels off all of his clothes.
Really hot and he just starts taking clothes off. Yeah,
that's how I read it.
I mean, I assume that's kind of how she was playing it, I guess. But I just don't. Her heart certainly wasn't in it.
Well, no, and she's drug around like a Hammer horror damsel this whole episode. In her slip, manacled to different walls, getting carried off to and fro.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in general, Davison was, because he loved the character of Nyssa so much, and he loved Sarah Sutton so much, he was determined to make this story the best it could possibly be. And so he would have hard lines he would draw where he was like, no, we can't do this. But then when a scene would happen where he wasn't there to protect the situation, something would happen, Sarah Sutton being asked to remove her skirt for no reason.
That's unfortunate.
But another thing, which was they were shooting scenes in the control room with the pilot. And when they got to the set, the pilot was dressed in cobwebs, had cobwebs all over it. And Peter Davison was like, no, he's not dead. He's just moving really slow. Why would he Why would there be cobwebs? That doesn't make any sense, because from his perspective, he just like has had cobwebs all over. Like he just suddenly has cobwebs on him. That doesn't make any sense. And so like Mary Ridge was just like, oh, fine. And then removed the cobwebs. But like,
which took
she was
8
just
hours.
Like, yeah. She was just like, I just want this to be done. And Davidson was like, no, I don't want it to just be done. I want it to be good and done. And so, yeah, there was a lot of friction there. But none more than on the final day on the shooting schedule for Terminus, October 27th, 1982, in which they figured out early on that they were going to need an extra hour to complete the story. An hour past call time, and as everyone knows, the British do not like working overtime. British crew, they hate it, and
they don't love work like we do.
No, well, yeah, but no, it's not that. It's just that like they don't respect, like they don't have any feeling for the art that they're doing. To them, it's just the job. And when the job is over, they go home. They don't give a shit. Like, fuck your show. I don't care. You know, like they just don't. Like that's their attitude, and that's not a negative thing. It's just that is the culture out there, which is like it's 5:00. I'm out of here. I got a pint at a pub waiting for me a block away. Like I'm gone.
Less than a block, to be honest.
Right. And so knowing this, that they were going to need an extra hour, J&T, like Mary went to J&T and was like, listen, I'm going to need an extra hour. If I don't get that extra hour, I'm not going to be able to finish the story. I need the extra hour. And J&T was like, I got news for you. Don't even worry about it. I already got it taken care of. We have our extra hour. It's guaranteed. No problem. Got it approved. Don't even worry about it. And Mary was like, oh, thank God. Okay, great. So she goes back in and starts, her day with the understanding that she has an extra hour to wrap everything up. Then, as it became, as time ticked away on the final day, we learned that John Nathan Turner had not actually gotten this approved, but was so confident that he would, he told her that he did.
What?
And then spent the day trying to convince them to stay the extra hour, to which none of them would, and wouldn't even discuss it. He thought he would be able to convince them in time. He didn't. The extra hour was never approved, and they all left at the end of their day, leaving an hour's worth of work yet to be done that would not be done. Mary Ridge was furious, refusing to ever work for Doctor Who or JNT ever again.
Yeah, because he lied to her.
Yes, right. Bad producer. Yes, bad producer.
Wow.
It would be it would require the production to be remounted at a later date. This was deeply disappointing for Sarah Sutton, who, after dealing with the high emotion of leaving Doctor Who, would now have to come back and complete her last serial at a later date. Davidson was also frustrated with Nathan Turner and blamed his sour demeanor for casting a sort of like pall over Sarah's farewell party that night. So the plan was to record the remaining material at the start of the next story's production, which was again delayed due to the ongoing union disputes, and so Terminus ultimately returned. Remember, the final date was October 27th, 1982. It would finally return to production December 18th, which was partway through The King's Demons, the season finale. So, like, the story after the next one. Nobody was happy about this. Episode 1 was still running short, so they used this opportunity to craft additional material involving Tegan and Turlough to open the story. So that scene where he like opens the thing and then Tegan gives him a hard time, that was like
that happens
added.
8 times, Scott.
Right. that added, but the opening scene, that was added as the 2-minute
okay.
buffer. Yes.
Got it.
So, so like, I guess before it was just kind of like, you would like learn later that he had
Sabotage
messed with the TARDIS. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So, and then the remaining scenes, in the TARDIS control room in the corridor, were shot that day, as well as, the spaceship control room, where Mary Ridge was frustrated to discover that the spaceship set and a number of props had been mishandled in storage and had all been damaged.
Jesus Christ.
So, and then finally, just insult to injury, when the episode finally aired, it was criticized by several individuals involved in leprosy awareness for promoting archaic beliefs about the nature of the disease. So this story was absolutely cursed. And that curse's name was John Nathan Turner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Remind me when he left the show finally?
When
it was canceled.
That poor bastard. He's just
Yep.
trapped in a job he hates and is bad at.
Yep. It was basically, he was the producer all through the 80s, essentially.
Yep.
Wild stuff. Wild stuff.
Has that ever been an episode title?
Wild stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, so that's Terminus. And so now, after learning all of that, I really do just like look at the story way more fondly, because I'm like, well, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It makes sense, doesn't it? You know, I mean, I don't mean to say like the story makes sense. Like,
yeah,
it is a like we said at the beginning, it's a pretty competent episode of the show,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Which is
right,
kind of miraculous,
not particularly great. Yeah, yeah, wild.
God, yeah, that's just so unfortunate that this director's like perfect streak was ruined by like ineptitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. Gosh, but you know, how many times in the industry can you say that?
I know.
Terminus begins. Well, you know, speaking of, I mean, art imitating life. Terminus begins with a rotten little man futzing about with the TARDIS, and a competent woman coming in and being like, "Hey, fuck are you doing?" And he's like, "Nothing.
Knock it off.
I'm not doing anything. You're weird for thinking I'm being weird. I wish you could. You should be nicer to me, actually."
God, he's such a sleazeball.
I feel like he wasn't this sleazy in Modern. Am I is that like, am I wrong?
He was, I think he was more pathetic in Modern. But I agree, he is more sleazy here.
Cass, you're kind of an authority on pathetic / sleazy characters. How do you feel about that?
I think it plays different because, like, he does crash that car and then blame that poor kid. So, like, I think it plays different.
Piggy or whatever his name was.
Yeah, I think it plays a little different when he's like doing that to another man, and when he's like trying to like manipulate Tegan. You know.
Mm-hmm.
It is funny, yeah, because like, yeah, you're right. Piggy or the boy, the child, the student was just like equally pathetic.
Yes, yeah.
He was like, "No, please be nice to me, Turlough. No, I can't. No, I'm in the
I'm
car.
only 12 years old.
I'm a 12-year-old boy, Turlough, like you are." What Tegan has like does not sanction his buffoonery at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of what but before that, we get something pretty crazy, kind of mind blowing. The first scene of this episode, the Turlough is being visited mentally by the Black Guardian. It's, gosh, I was trying to think of another like media thing where this happens, where like the bad guy has like can go into the mind of this character at any time and like do it, kill the doctor. Anyway, but he says. He tells Turlough, the Black Guardian, to be like, "Turn around, the roundel, open it." And it's those round little knobs that the TARDIS has sometimes.
Yeah.
And Turlough slides it open and there's like sci-fi junk in there. But I was like, the Roundel. I didn't know those had names.
I don't know that they do. I feel like he just made that up. The round, like they didn't want him to say the round things, so they like came up with a word.
The round things.
The roundel. Roundel? I've never heard that word before this episode, I don't think.
Or sense?
I don't think so.
A roundel is a circular decoration.
Oh, so that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because famously, there's that joke in Day of the Doctor where 10 and 11 are like, oh, look, the round things are. I love. What are the round things? I have no idea.
The Black Guardian was there. He'd tell him. They're
They're
roundels,
cold.
you idiot.
Ah,
you
what the
fool.
fuck? I've been here the whole time. Oh man! So
Where's Turlough?
Turlough's like a skeleton with a.
He hasn't been
jacket,
answering my calls.
curled up in one of the roundels. So yeah, Tegan's like, I don't trust you. I think you're full of shit. You just seem very ingenuous. And he's like, no, me ingenuous? No. Dummy.
You're doing it right now.
Yeah. There's this really heartbreaking scene where he's like, I'm here the doctor told me to take you to your room. And I was nerding out because we get like hallway shots of the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Like
There's a lot of that in Five's era.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Star Trek in this, in little
Hmm.
ways. And one of them is like just treating the TARDIS like the Enterprise with like hallways and rooms.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's this really sad detail where Tegan is forced by the doctor to lead Turlough into Adric's old room that is still decorated with his stuff.
Mhm.
And he's like, this is your room. I'm like, oh, what kind of dumb idiot kid lived here? And it's like, my friend Adric. Well, Adric was a real fucking nerd. Anyway, I'm going to unpack my stuff. And Tegan's just like, all right, I guess this is. And they're like,
Yeah.
man, that's like really, that's a bummer.
Mhm.
Yeah. He was like, he was my best friend and he loved math and he killed the dinosaurs. And then she ran out of the room.
You are half the man he is. Like, make another magic room, doctor.
Yo,
Like,
I know. That's the thing. Is like the TARDIS is so like it's literally like endless, right? And yet, they can't be bothered to just like, pack that room away and like open another room or something. I don't know.
had we ever seen that room before?
I don't
don't
remember.
know.
I don't know about Adric's room specifically. I know we've seen that room decorated as other people's rooms.
Oh, like
Yeah.
that set
before.
for sure. But,
Yeah, that set. Yeah.
So it's kind of bizarre. They decorated it just to be like, this is what his room looked like, by the way, before this dickbag comes in and like,
Yeah. I just don't want you guys to forget that we did kill Adric. He's dead.
yeah. Cass, what did you think of Adric's room?
I kind of liked how there was so much stuff.
Yeah. It looked like a discovery zone.
Yeah. But I guess he had been there the longest out of those three, so like not by much, but still.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Man. And then Tegan goes into Nyssa's room where she's doing like little science experiments, and it's so great. She's like, yeah, Adric used to do the numbers, and they're like, math. Little idiot loved math. Meanwhile, Turlough just like no chill sneaks into the TARDIS and he's like pulling shit out of it and messes everything up. And what ends up happening is the TARDIS, there's this failsafe, I guess, when the TARDIS has its time space thing pulled out, it will latch onto the nearest ship like a magnet.
Mhm.
And it does that with this mysterious ship. Nyssa's room like melds with the ship. And so she like ends up exploring the ship. Like the doctor tells him to.
Yeah, because he's like either that or it kills you. So
Yeah.
better to go through the mysterious light where you could live than stay in your room where you will definitely die.
Yeah, I liked that the like they illustrated that like the time whatever keeps the TARDIS together
Mhm.
was falling apart by like making everything really blurry. And like it's like there's this like weird static noise, and it was really funny because it's like, oh yeah, half the room is blurry. You got to go to the other half of the room that's like in focus.
Yeah.
That you can see.
Yeah.
I also want to point out, because it's like one of like, you know, the quotes that modern Doctor Who writers love to point out about classic Doctor Who, like reverse the polarity of the neutron flow as like a thing the Doctor always says, which is, I'll explain later. And he actually says it here. They're like, what's that? And he was like, I'll explain later. And then they just leave.
It's so weird how like Tegan sees that Turlough is in the TARDIS console room when everything starts going to hell, but she's just it's like, well, I can't, you know, I have to just deal with this. And so they all start exploring the new ship. The Black Guardian is like, follow the Doctor and kill him. Kill the Doctor.
I do just want to mention too, when the Doctor throws that chair to like keep the door open.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah.
Which I just love. Just throws a chair across the room.
It's great. Yeah, he should do that more often.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just chuck a chair at a guy.
I want to call out Nyssa for trying to hide by crouching down and putting her face in her hands. She's like, no one will see me if I can't see them. It seems to be her logic. Like, I don't know.
The Doctor deduces that this is some kind of old passenger liner, like a freight train or a freighting ship, to put it in like I guess a real life equivalent. We meet Ulvir and Kari.
Yeah.
Who are like pirates, I guess, like smugglers.
Right.
And they're like,
and fashion icons.
And fashion icons, for sure. It's very like early Ralph McQuarrie, Luke Skywalker.
Oh, yeah. With the most 80s hair and makeup you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah. They're both very pretty.
Yeah. When their helmets come off, which the helmets themselves are not like round. So they're bubble helmets.
Yeah, they're not, it's like Barbarella, really. Like,
right. But they're like weirdly shaped in a way that where they have to like twist it off their head to fit their head through. And it's I don't know. It's a crazy design that I'm like, man, I know, I understand why they never went back to that costume team that did this, but like, I wish there was another episode where they did costumes, because these costumes are nuts.
So at one point, Tegan is exploring with Turlough, and while Turlough is doing whatever bullshit down the hallway, a door slides open, and in my mind, arms come out and start grabbing at Tegan, and Turlough has to come and like help free Tegan. And my first thought was mummies.
Yeah, I mean,
those are like old-timey mummies, but it turns out later that they are kind of like space lepers. And with that in mind, it's like, yeah, I could see if your job is being a watchdog for the way leprosy is perceived in the media, and you use old-timey Scooby-Doo mummy imagery.
Right.
Sure. That's true. That is true. I do think that it ends on a positive enough note about like, hey, there's nothing wrong with these guys. Like, we just have to make them better. Like,
well, yeah, you know? And it's kind of about, it's actually kind of this weirdly, darkly timely story about like a big company conglomerate taking advantage of people and a disease to boost and bolster their own profits.
Right. True. Very true.
But yeah, so the two pretty pirate smuggler people are like, yeah, this is our ship. We're hooked onto this ship. And like, well, there's nothing here. Like it's dead. And then this disembodied voice is like, hello, this is Terminus Incorporated. The ship has reached its final stop. We have reached Terminus. And then Ulvir is like, this is a leprosy ship. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
Episode
Yes. Also, I guess worth noting that Kari and Oliver's partner, who stayed behind in the ship, who was piloting the ship, basically like, I don't know if he like took a reading or what, but realized something was off and just like
fucks
fails.
Off, gets out.
Yeah, he just fucks off. So they're just stuck there now. And there's that bit where they have to, is this in episode 1 where they like, the Doctor forces them to ask nicely if they can take a ride in the TARDIS?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he totally, without even having to stand up, he totally reverses because they're holding them hostage, and then it's like, you idiots, like you have no, you're gone, you're stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. You're stuck. Just like, yeah, whatever. So anyway,
I want to say, before, so episode 1 ends with like, we're all going to die. And then we zoom in on Peter Davison's face as these, lepers are like hoarding around them like zombies. And Davidson is like pressed up against a wall. And he kind of makes, to me, was a Larry David face.
sure.
This almost kind of ends like an episode of Curb.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, now we're stuck with a bunch of lepers. So
Terminus, more like terminal.
Episode 2 starts with Olvier like runs off because he freaks out, and the doctor's like, I think he knows more than he lets on, that we should go look for him. And we learn more about one little minor detail I really liked. I liked the little colored computer blocks that the doctor uses to read up on stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the technology in this show like really inconsistent?
Yes.
Yes, extremely.
I never think to notice stuff like that, but yeah, every time someone goes like bleep bloop bleep, I'm on the computer. I'm like, yeah, it's probably could totally. Do they reuse these props and stuff?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a it's a situation where they're like, well, different cultures would have different kinds of technology, so like whatever, it doesn't matter.
We learn through these computer blocks, the doctor learns that Terminus is located at the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And worth noting, when I watched this on Tubi with subtitles, they spell center the English way.
How dare they?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. We learn a lot about kind of what I said earlier about, like this is a leper colony. Olvier is like, oh yeah, it's this disease called Lazar's disease.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone knows there's no cure. They just ship you to Terminus and you never come back. And the company, I think it's the only thing they refer to, just keeps like reaping in the profits. We meet our Night's Watch guys in this one. What were they called?
Veneer. The Veneer. And
we learn that they're slaves, that they are, again, kind of like Dune, Scott, they're addicted to this drug, and
the glow stick drug
that they shove into their chests.
Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah,
that's fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And like they are fed enough of that to stay alive. Cass, what did you think of these merry men?
I haven't thought about this in a really long time, but have either of you seen like Repo, the genetic opera?
No.
Okay.
I know what it is. Please.
The leader guy, he looks kind of like he has like discount vampire vibes. Like he I don't know. The vibes are the same. Like they're it's like a dystopic future. But anyway, I like the armor. It's very overdramatic because they're like shepherding these people to die, and they're dressed like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah,
like
it's extra for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
As the ship is detaching, it's beginning its sterilization process, and this whole time, these poor actors, I feel like Tegan and Turlough are in that air duct for like an episode and a half, it felt like.
Yeah, they're in there a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, they shot all of their scenes in like one block. They like built that set and then just like shot all of it all at the same time.
Golly, there is one moment I liked where when they're first getting into the air ducts, Turlough is like dragging behind and he's like, oh, I'm so unfit. And he makes like a joke and Tegan like, grins despite herself.
Mm-hmm.
Can't help but grin. This would probably say if this were like prose. And it's like, oh, I can kind of see the like the charm, the scumbag charm, and not just like, fuck this guy,
Yeah. This is about when Nyssa gets infected and then takes off her skirt.
Yeah.
And
she's teamed up with Olvier's for a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then he leaves her behind because she's sick, he's like freaked out because he's like really afraid of like getting space leprosy.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets taken away by the robot,
Yes.
which takes her to the guys in the armor. And she does the old, I think I've cut my thumb trick. And he's like, let me see that. And then just like punches him in the face and tries to run away.
It's like that Simpsons show where Dr. Hibbert is like, oh, I bet you've never even seen your own reflection, Hugo. And he just punches through the frame.
Yes.
That was a great moment. I mean, there's a lot of inner drama with the veneer that I could get into. There's like the tall one. There's the one who goes into the forbidden zone and goes crazy. They all want to just shove that sweet Hal Halkasaur into their chest or whatever.
I love that the little drug thing looks like a glow stick. Like it's probably a glow stick, and then they
truly.
It's definitely a glow
they shove
stick,
it into their chest plate of their uniform, and they're like, "Oh, fuck yeah, so fucking high now."
Finally. Yeah, we also get introduced to who I could only refer to as Splinter with laser eyes.
Garm.
Yeah. He's like an 8 foot tall. He's supposed to be a dog, I guess. I guess he's supposed to be, because apparently this story is like loaded with references to like Norse mythology, and so
really.
Oh,
yes. So he's
interesting.
So he's supposed to be a reference to like the Hellhound of Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cass, did any alerts go up in your brain just now?
Well, because like the the skeleton crew.
Ew,
holy shit. It's the Vanir, right? Like I don't know what. I don't know. That's funny.
It's like VANI.
Yeah. The way it's spelled looks Norse.
Let me see. I can tell you what all the Norse stuff is.
Is Olvir? Is that a Norse name?
Let's see. Name. Okay, so Gallagher named the Vanir after a lesser group of fertility gods. Of the individual members, Bor was the father of Odin, head of the Norse pantheon. Sigurd was a great Norse hero, also known as Siegfried or Savard Snarrensvend. Erak was initially called Eric after a king of Norway. And also
they just had to sci-fi it up a little bit.
Yeah, also known as Eric Bloodaxe. Similarly, the Garm was named for a monstrous hellhound, also known as Garmer, who appeared during the time of Ragnarok, the twilight of the Norse gods. Meanwhile, the term Lazar was an archaic word for leper. It was derived from the biblical figure Lazarus, described in Gospel of John, of having died from an illness only to be resurrected 4 days later by Jesus. So, there you go.
We have not met yet in the canon, I don't think, in Doctor Who.
No. Also, it was Kari, right?
Yeah, the other pirate.
Yeah, Kari was originally called, what was her original name? Because it's just funny. I can't find what her original name was. I didn't write it down. But her original name was like an old, I think, Norse or something. One of the Norse languages was that language for vulva.
Oh.
Because of the reproductive god stuff that was going on here.
That's odd.
So she's like, he was like, yeah, and I'll name her vulva. And Eric Sayward was like, no, you won't. And just rewrote it, changed her name.
Speaking of vulva,
I love when the writer when they bring in these writers that get commissioned to write Doctor Who, the classic Who, shot in multicam like this, and they get like real pretentious about like their shit, and you're just like, no, this is ostensibly a children's show. Please stop. Stop doing this. It's just really funny to me.
And speaking of Kari, part 2 ends with almost like a gag, of the doctor being like, what do you think this is, Kari? And Kari's like, well, I think. And then she gets cut off. It's like, Kari. And then she's getting choked out by one of the veneer. And then it's like, her, I just choked out. But you, I'm going to kill. And then he starts choking him out anyway. So it's like, all right. Who are you, I guess.
Yeah.
And then part 3 starts with he's like, a little help, Kari. And Kari's like, okay. And he shoots him. But it like stuns him. And then they run off
because of his six skull helmet. It like
his 6 skull helmet.
Yeah, it like bounces off his helmet.
It is, yeah, you're right.
Nyssa gets thrown in that room with all the other lepers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she meets a buddy.
Yeah,
who's like, "This, you're gonna die here. You know where you are? You're Terminus, baby. You're gonna die."
Oh man, my favorite line in this, or my favorite exchange in this episode, is when Turlough and Tegan, they crawl out of the ducts finally, and then they're just like sitting on these steps, and Turlough is just out of nowhere is like, you ever wonder if you'd be capable of killing someone? And Tegan is like, what the fuck are you talking about, you weirdo?
No, it's like you ever think you'd kill someone, Tegan? And Tegan's like, no. Well, I suppose if someone was like threatening my family or being dangerous, like, no, I just mean like unjustifiably like murder someone. Could you do that?
Yeah,
like, fucking no, I guess not. Then what the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah, you're weird, Turlough. Why are you bringing this up right now?
I like, because the vibe of this is like one person is like 3 a.m. at a sleepover, and one person is like 9 p.m. at a sleepover. You know what I mean?
Yes,
right.
Yes,
absolutely.
Holy shit, that's exactly the vibes. Wow. Yeah.
This is a cool idea. Like, putting the 2 people who are most at odds on Team TARDIS literally stuck like in a tin can together.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I just wish there was more drama or character development wrung out of that. But I mean, knowing what I know about the making of this episode, that's asking for, entirely too much.
Uh-huh.
Fair enough.
The doctor and Kari start to they're on their own little team. And the doctor's like, a lot of this, my Blueby What's-It or whatever picked up that this is like radiation.
Blueby What's-It.
Does he even have his Sonic at this point?
It comes and goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow he's able to figure out that he did a reading of the lepers and he was like, oh, they have radiation poisoning. I think this might be like radiation stuff.
Right. So it's like a combo.
It's like a combo for sure.
Yeah. Which is important for, I guess, the result of everything, I guess.
They meet Boar,
mm-hmm.
the dude who wandered off into the Forbidden Zone, and he is like gone radiation crazy. And he's like, there's like one engine left. That one engine is broken, and he's like walling up one of the other engines to like block the radiation.
Right.
What do you guys think of Boar?
He plays like addled well. I don't.
He does.
Like, he's one of the standout of the supporting cast.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not like super aggro guy, like super aggro choke you out guy.
That's true. And during all of this, like Nyssa's just kind of getting passed back and forth between Garm the wolf and the guards or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes Elvier saves her, but then he doesn't. But
she gets chained up.
Yeah. The meat of this episode, though, is when the Doctor and Kari make it into the control or the I don't know.
Control room. Yeah.
The control room. I was trying to think of what the part of it. The cockpit is the word I was trying to think of.
Go.
Oh, sure.
Because
I don't know that it qualifies as a cockpit because it's a space station.
The bridge.
For sure. The bridge.
Yeah, sure. Bridge. Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, almost space jockey a little bit where
you're right.
You see this seemingly dead astronaut wedged into his pilot seat. And the Doctor's like, oh shit. The reason this ship had space-time capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
It all makes sense now. The reason Terminus is located at the center of the universe is because at some point there was a major fusel related disaster where the ship had to unload a lot of fuel at once. It caused an explosion, which, because the ship had space-time capabilities, is not only an explosion, it is the explosion. The Terminus ship caused the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And if one, but now he's like, oh shit, the radiation's leaking out. The other engine's about to explode. Well, if the first explosion caused the beginning of everything, I can deduce that the second explosion will cause the end of everything. Gentlemen, ooey you. End of episode 2.
Yes.
Ooey.
Or 3.
Yeah. Gentlemen, ooey you. That sounded like the that sounded like you entering a secret club. Of
That's like the password. Yeah.
You're just like greeting the two guys at the door in their
Gentlemen?
robes. Gentlemen, who are you?
Yeah, that should be the new secret Doctor Who greeting.
Yeah. That's how you should have to get into Gallifrey 1.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Because we immediately know what it is, but to the layman, it'd be like, what?
What?
Shit is kicking into high gear because episode 4 starts with Peter Davison taking his coat off.
Yeah.
Speaking of sexy.
Yeah. True.
He's kind of whatever in this for me. I don't know. He's just like a generic dude. I don't know. He doesn't have any doctory moments for me in this.
Sometimes that happens with 5. Because he doesn't have, I think his like doctorisms are very subtle. Which makes it difficult for like guest writers to come in and write him properly. I think because I just think about like Time Crash, and I'm like, oh yeah, like Moffat knew exactly what 5 isms to pull at for that story, for that little short, to like really like kind of concentrate who the 5th Doctor is. But I think it's a little nebulous, I think.
Cass, did you find 5 engaging in this episode?
I think it's a shame that he's not hanging out with Nyssa or any of his companions. Like he's with like a stand-in companion,
Yeah. This person he has no chemistry with or history with.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So meanwhile, there is, speaking of union disputes, the Veneer are having kind of a dispute. So the Doctor and Kari, that's so weird now that you say that. It is all, she's with Kari this whole episode. They meet the dude that they shot before, and they're like, "Hey, man, it's the Big Bang. Like whatever you were worried about, it doesn't really matter right now." We can. Oh my god! I just remembered this part. He's like, "We can get you an unlimited supply of drugs, and if you help us." And they're like, "Okay, done." They go back to the sheriff department base. It almost looks like where park rangers have their little base, where they just hang out and have like the table with the radio where there's something happen, and they we have to go do stuff. It's like that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "What the hell, Yark? You can't just bring anyone in here." And he's like, he says that he can get us all the drugs. And he just shoots the padlock off of the gate with all the drugs in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, none of you could do that?
Well, they didn't have guns.
Okay, that's true. They didn't have guns.
That's why they have to like wrestle with everybody and choke them out.
So...
Yeah.
That. So this is the episode where Nyssa is cured of her Lazar's disease, and with her brilliant intellect, as soon as she is cured, she's it all kind of clicks into place for her, and she's like, "Oh, they're doing it wrong. This actually could work. Terminus could work. It's scattershot right now. There's like a 1 in 3 chance that like the operation like doesn't work, right?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Doctor and Kari are trying to move this big lever to get the ship to move or do something. And Kari says offhandedly, like, "Wow, whoever did this, this pilot must have the strength of a giant." And the Doctor's like, "Say that again." And so earlier in the episode, at one point, the Doctor and Kari stole the box that controls Garm.
Mm-hmm.
So they can control Garm. And Garm's like, you don't even have to lie to me. or whatever. Like, I have to do what you say now because you have this box.
I love that he talks. I forgot that he talked, and then he like
Yes.
opens the. It doesn't look like a mascot thing, but like it's kind of.
It looks like a furry outfit.
Yeah.
for sure.
It does.
And, like the mouth
does.
moves, and he's like, "I must obey" or whatever.
Hello.
I was like,
I wish I had written down what his first line was because it's so low key.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, of course.
He really does remind me of Splinter. He looks like a rat.
The whiskers, the snout.
Yeah. Very rat like, but also like the red eyes. Like it just reminds me of like those like the memes, like the laser eye memes.
Yeah.
So it's like Splinter with like Splinter and like a laser eye meme.
Great. Yeah, that's Garm. So the Doctor had earlier destroyed the box, kind of like, freeing the genie kind of deal.
Right.
And so
You help me out, so I'll free you.
Yeah, which I guess is a little 5. I don't know. And so he's like, they're able to get Gorm back to do the thing. And this actually ends up being, well, one good thing I will say about this episode is it ends in such an exciting way that when it ended, I was like, whoa, wait, I didn't know we were, oh shit, I'm still like locked in on this.
Mm-hmm.
Because after they save the ship, Nyssa is like, I'm leaving. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about like the character moment that she has. But
yeah,
Turlough is back on the TARDIS. And the Black Guardian is like, okay, I've been telling you this for like the past 4 episodes, but now I really do mean it. If you don't kill the Doctor, I'm gonna like kill your brain from where you are. And then that's the ooey. That's like the end of the episode.
Right.
So Nyssa is like, hey, there's a lot of work here for me to do to get to cure the Lazar. I can't go with you. I have to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And something we've criticized the Doctor for doing, especially in like Bad Wolf, last run, is the Doctor has a habit of upending an entire society and then fucking off into the TARDIS and like maybe accidentally checking in centuries later.
Mm-hmm.
But Nyssa is like, wait, my work's not done here. These people need my intellect and my gifts. I'm going to stay and do the hard, boring thing and help these people. And the Doctor's like, couldn't be me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do we, I mean, I think both of you know Nyssa more than me just from episodes watch, know her character better, but does this part at least kind of ring a little bit? Oh no, is that not even to that true, Scott?
I mean, not really. I mean, you've seen the bulk of her at this point now.
That makes me sad.
Yeah, because she's only in like 2 episodes that you haven't seen.
Wow.
Yeah,
2 stories.
because it's the tail end of 4.
Yeah. It's his penultimate and then his final story,
right.
And that's it. That's all she's in, and she's only a companion in one of those, technically.
Golly. Yeah, I really feel like I regretfully, I don't think she ever really like. I was always more interested in wanting to like her more than, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I think
you're on John Nathan Turner's team. I see.
no, because I think there's a lot of.
She's weak. I want her gone.
I think Nyssa has a lot of potential, and like because she agrees with the Doctor more, like she's not like in opposition to the Doctor, so she kind of like blends. Also, there were like 3 companions, and so she kind of gets lost in the shuffle. She's the Yaz of this.
Yes. I was just going to say, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Where it's like, clearly this is the companion that she should be with.
Yes.
Clearly this is the companion he should be with alone. So they can have alone time, if you know what I'm saying.
And I think that would even, because to have 5 be maybe
in
like,
both cases, holy shit.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. To have 5 be like the more bleeding heart, like, and have Nyssa sort of be the more, again, a very Roddenberry kind of character of like this utopian intellect and like seeing things. I don't know. That could have, there is stuff there. There is a way to make that engaging and cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a way to make, for I think, John Nathan Turner to have gotten what he wanted if he had a better script editor.
Yes.
Because like there's a way to make Nyssa be who she is, but be a little in opposition to the Doctor, with that, mentality like you're talking about, I think there's a way of doing that if you had smarter writers in charge at this time, but
And to continue that meta, I mean, like going back to Yaz in 13, it's like yeah, they wouldn't have just like been making out on the TARDIS. Like there is opportunity for drama, and because then there's this bullshit of when there's no one else for her to hide behind. Yaz could have been like, "Why are you like this?
Right.
Like, what's your deal?"
Right.
Because I think the problem, because we just talked about how 5 is subtle and like Nyssa is very subtle, but also like she's with Tegan, who is the definition of unsubtle, and Adric, who's a special math boy. So like
Weird group.
Yeah,
he's very particular.
Yes.
Yeah. And Turlough is also very specific.
Yes.
So yeah,
like an Edmund from Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe Companion that you're kind of like rooting against.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At least for
but
now.
you know what? It's I would say that it's and like 13 also, like 5 is undefined. Like I think 13 is very like underdefined, right? As a character, as a doctor.
Undercooked.
Until her final story, exactly like the 5th Doctor.
Oh shit.
Where you get to his final story and you're like, oh, that's who he was. Oh well, he's gone. And that's they're very samey, which is also interesting because 9, 10, 11, 12. She is also the 5th Doctor.
And they're both blonde. What is this?
And they're both blonde. Yeah.
They're both
very
soft
weird.
and blonde. Yeah.
Yeah. But the 5th Doctor does have one thing over 13, which is that he had 2 very well-defined companions, whereas she really only had the one, Graham, I would say, until it was just Yaz, and then Yaz got to be more defined. But Graham was very defined, and to the point where you're kind of just like, I mean, I'd be cool if it was just the 2 of them.
Yeah, because Graham was like 60 years old. Like, of course he's defined.
Yeah.
Like, he's a whole ass person.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
the only thing I remember about Ryan is that he didn't know how to ride a bike.
That sucks. That sucks.
That's it.
And that he didn't like Graham.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes me very interested. We don't talk about news too much while we're doing this, but the Whoniverse is ever moving as we're doing the long way round. And
of course,
time of recording, it was just officially revealed that season 2 is going to feature 2 companions, Ruby Runday and this new character. And I'm excited to see that dynamic, to see kind of what New Who does with like a full house.
They had to do that to like kill the rumors that were spreading crazily
Of
that
Millie Gibson.
that Ruby was a Time Lord and was going to be regenerating into
Whoa, I never heard that.
The other companion.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was spreading quickly. And I think that's why they released that photo of both of them, because they're like, no. We only shot on location with the one. They're both in it. Chill. Everybody chill.
Oh,
Stop.
I thought the story, because I had heard rumblings of like, oh no, like did something happen with Millie Gibson? Did she not like being on the show, or did they not like working with her? And that's why blah blah. And so that's why they would be doing damage control.
Oh no. I mean, I just think Russell T Davies likes changing things up every season.
Yeah.
Like you look at his run, and he did. Like he changed the Doctor, then he would change a companion each season.
Yeah.
So that was his move. He liked to keep things fresh. So I think that's all it is. But yeah, I was starting to see those rumors, and I was like, what? And then it was like literally like 12 hours later they released that photo.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like,
yeah.
Nope, it's not that.
No. That's way cooler than what we're doing. So don't say that. Yeah, don't get your hopes up. No.
Do you think there's like some intern that was like frantically like opened the office doors? It's like they think she's a Time Lord.
We have to do something.
The one like 19-year-old nerd they have on the payroll to just be on Doctor Who Twitter all day.
Yeah. What's going to be really funny is because this is releasing after the new season comes out.
Oh, that's
when
funny.
It's revealed that Ruby Sunday actually is a Time Lord, and that's the reason why this conversation is going to be very dated and very funny. But in any event, at the time of recording, we have not seen the new episodes yet.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Farewell, Nyssa. Do we ever hear any kind of like postscript on like what happens to her? Oh wow.
Nope.
Okay.
I looked it up. Nothing really. No, there was a story, I guess, that again, I don't know why everybody wants to put Nyssa into sexual situations. But there's a story that Russell T Davies wrote in 2020. I forget what it was called.
Oh, was it one of those like quarantine like short stories that came out?
Maybe it was. Yeah, it must have been if it was 2020, right? And And in it, he reveals that Nyssa and Tegan had a relationship. They were lesbians together.
They were in lesbians together.
Yeah, which I just don't. I say it that way in the most awkward way possible because I'm like, no, I don't think they were, Russell. Like, not for nothing. Like, I don't have anything against that at all. But like, nothing about their vibe reads that at all. And Tegan doesn't even seem especially bothered that she's staying behind,
Oh, no, not you.
Yeah. I mean, they do have that. I guess they do have that kind of like fun scene behind the Doctor where like the Doctor is wrapping up the plot in the foreground and behind him, Nyssa is telling Tegan that she's staying and not going back in the TARDIS. And you can see like Tegan having a big reaction to it, like silently in the background.
So weird.
Which is kind of fun. So maybe that's the thing that Russell like hyper focused on, but I don't know. I don't buy it.
They read like way more like sisterly to me than
it's just a very asexual TARDIS crew right now.
Yes,
I think.
Yes,
yeah.
Like their final embrace was very sweet, but it was very like goodbye, my sister. Like I'll think of you always.
Right.
Take care.
Right. Yeah. But overall, I do like the story could be better. But I think in terms of like finding a good way to like have Nyssa leave that feels, while forced, at least natural for her character, I think this is pretty solid because she's like, yeah, no, like I got to stay here because I have to figure out the cure for space leprosy. I have to figure out the cure for this radiation poisoning. I think they might be related. And also I have to synthesize their drugs so that these guys aren't slaved to capitalism anymore. So, yeah, I'm going to do all of those things like the overachiever that I am. And I bid you all adieu. And I'm like, yeah, that seems like a good way for Nyssa to go out. That's pretty good.
I loved the way she was like, I've enjoyed every minute of my time in the TARDIS, but now the time has come to an end for I must do this and this and that. And you're like, she's somehow selling that this did matter to her, but also the logic of this is so plain to her that it's like, it's not even a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you made me want a companion with a transatlantic accent.
Oh, yeah, I kind of did do one, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, that would be amazing.
I talked myself just now into imagine like sisters companions, like two sisters. Or like,
that's kind of fun. Yeah.
And like
that
they
is
can
fun.
be kind of opposites at the beginning.
Right.
And then like they learn about each other.
Yeah, I like that. So that's Terminus. I mean, not a particularly notable story outside of it being Nyssa's final story and the absolute nightmare that was the production of this. Yeah.
Jesus.
But otherwise it's just, if you're just watching it, other than Nyssa, it's just the middle part of the Black Guardian trilogy, and that's kind of it.
Yep.
You're like, yep, all right. We start with a good one, get a middling one in the middle, and then end on an absolute banger. So
an all-timer.
Yeah.
No, it's like finding out that like Orphan 55, like at one point, like Jodie Whittaker just had a knife out and she was like, "Nobody move!"
Right?
Like, really, that one?
Yeah, that's the one where this happened. Okay, wow.
Chill. Right.
Anyway, all right. Well, I think that's about it on Terminus. Nick, what are we covering next week?
Oh boy, listeners, next week we are covering our first Sixth Doctor Big Finish audio adventure, The Holy Terror. It's got everything. It's got shape-shifting penguins, horrifying body horror, Douglas Adams-like satire, and a possible redemption for the most divisive Doctor in Doctor Who history. Maybe?
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's Frobisher time.
The Holy Terror. And if you have not listened to many of the Big Finishes, or maybe any of the Big Finishes that we do, next week's a pretty good one. So give it a shot. I will say.
And they're on Spotify.
On Spotify.
Yeah.
They're on Spotify.
Well, the first 50 are on Spotify, like the first 50 monthly releases. And then I think the first season of the Eighth Doctor Adventures with Lucy Miller is also on Spotify, but they're a little picky on what they put up on Spotify because they're like, well, I mean, we want people to pay us, so
hey,
you know,
yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, like the Eighth Doctor audios that we're doing, those are literally the last two that are on Spotify, and then everything after that is not, because Zagreus is the 50th. So anyway, the Holy Terror next week. We'll talk to you then. Bye, everybody.